Good evening. It's another Tuesday evening, and we are live on Joy 99.7 FM. It's 7 past 7 p.m., and this is Geek Squad with your girl Adobia Pep Biritwum. Last week we started a very interesting topic. We had so many of you call in, and there were also messages that came through our WhatsApp line. And we looked at managing banking fraud in digital payments. Today, we are doing the part 2 of that, and we want to keep you informed so that we keep you secure. Why? Because October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We want to keep ourselves safe in the cyber world that we find ourselves today. My guests are here. They are ready. As I mentioned, is a part 2. So my guests from last week are here. But just in case you missed last week, we have it on Facebook and on YouTube. Right now, we are even streaming on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Ajoy 997 FM. Ajoy 997 FM. We would like to hear from you. Today, we are talking about managing banking fraud in digital payments. Has there been any situation where you probably had an issue with your banking app or someone tried to defraud you? We want to hear from you. Send us your WhatsApp message on 055 1111 997 055 1111 997. There'll be a time for you to also call in. We want to make room for you to ask your questions. And when that time comes, you can reach us on 0302 216 541. 0302 216 541. As I mentioned, my guests are ready, and I'll be introducing them right after we take what is happening in the tech space. We want to know the emerging tech trends. At this point in time, Prince, can you share with us what is happening in the tech space?
My name is Prince Safo, and this is the emerging tech trends on Geek Squad. So the first news, Adobia, Meta is planning to start charging users for ad-free Instagram and Facebook. And then the second news trend we have is that Vodafone's free mobile money transfer to other network ends today. And then Google Podcast is going away in 2024. The last news that we have is that Apple released their iPhone 15 not long ago. Now people are complaining. So there are analysts that are saying that the iPhone 15 Pro has some overheating problems, but Apple is saying that, you know what, don't worry about that. It doesn't affect the performance of the iPhone. So yes, so in the first news, Meta is planning on starting to charge people about $14 so that I don't see ads on Instagram and Facebook and what have you. So but they are starting with EU countries, so that's what they are doing. Now, Vodafone has been giving free transfer for all networks for some time now. Now they are saying that because of some challenges, they'll have to start charging transfer from Vodafone network to other networks, but transfer from Vodafone to Vodafone is still free. Now Google Podcasts, people usually do podcasts and or even put their podcast on Google Podcasts. Now Google is saying that this is going away. They will rather try to explore podcasts using YouTube Music. So that's the next thing. Now iPhone 15, people love iPhone in this country, and I mean there's heating problems with the phone, but Apple is assuring everyone that, you know what, it's not going to affect the performance, and they are actually trying to fix this thing. So if you've heard of this, just relax. Thank you. That's all in the tech trends for this week.
Thank you so much, Prince, for that. With everything that has been shared, I believe that there's just a need for people to just be aware. And iPhone, a lot is happening on social media about the release of the new iPhones, and hopefully they are able to just recover and get things sorted for users, because I know our iPhone lovers. I know our iPhone lovers. If you're just joining us, this is Geek Squad with Adobia, Pep, Biritwum. This show is brought to you by MTN. MTN everywhere you go. Today we are looking at managing banking fraud in digital payments. Last week we started with this session and we had most of you engage with us. Today we are here to continue with the session that we had. My guests are here and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. I first have Gideon Kofi Amegavi. He is a cybersecurity professional. Gideon, you are welcome.
Thank you.
I also have with me Eric Kweku Mensah. Eric is the lead. He is the lead for financial crimes and anti-money laundering at E-Crime Bureau. Eric, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Today we want to make time for our listeners to be able to call in and ask their questions. Last week we started with a discussion on how best we can manage the banking fraud. We spoke about cards and how secure we need to even keep them, because the information, the numbers on them, depending on whose hands it falls into, you can be a victim of fraud. And today we want to delve deeper with some of the questions that even came from the people that called us last week. And I want to start with one question first, and then we can get into more details. There was one person who called, I think that was the last caller, and what he mentioned was that he had only activated his mobile app, had never used it. However, there were some transactions on his account, only for him to get to the bank to be told that yes, and he recovered part of the money. He was still waiting for the rest. So the first question that some people asked, even from last week's conversations, are the banking apps secure? Are the banking apps secure?
Good.
I'll start with you, Gideon.
All right. Thanks very much, Peps. So, I think Eric touched on this question last week, and I will take it from where he left off. And the simple answer is no. No app, even put the banking apps aside, no app is 100% secure. Once the app runs on code, it means that it can be hacked. There are vulnerabilities day in, day out. And this is the reason why normally or day to day, these banks and these other apps, they do send up the updates for you to update these patches and this vulnerability. So yes, there is no way you can tell me a banking app is secured. There's no way. There's no two ways about that. It's just not the case. So why are they not secured? I think I've touched on that. But the basis is that they run on codes. Okay. And these are scripts or a list of a series of instructions these apps follow just to execute instructions or command.
But when we say they are not secure, will we not be causing some kind of fear in people who use it? Because we need to check the other aspects of it where you may have to follow certain things in order to keep you secure.
Yeah. All right. So because we know that these apps are not secured, that is why there are other measures or countermeasures you need to do to implement to make sure that as and when you use them, you don't fall victim to such attacks.
Yeah.
And last week we did touch on activating multi-factor authentication, like where Eric said, the MFA, where you use another level of security. So in cybersecurity, we call it layered architecture or defense in depth, where you use different mechanisms or different layers to make sure that your app you are using is secured. So apart from using the username and the password, you need to get another level of authentication, which is the MFA. Aside that, we also said that you should always use a trusted apps that are you get from the banks or the institutions you are dealing with directly. You shouldn't just go and download the app anywhere using the APK or whatever, and then you try to run it on your phone. So there are a lot of measures you need to ensure as an end user when you're using this to save secure. The last but not the least, I touched on that, but let me emphasize on it. That is the updates. It's very important. People, because of space issues and data issues, normally do not want to update these banking apps. Once they install it, that is it. Anytime they see new update, they don't want to update because of data or because of space on their phone. But it's very good practice that you always make sure that your apps are up to date. So I think I'll leave it to Eric to touch on that as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Gideon, for your perspective. And I think I beg to differ a bit
Okay.
from the earlier comment that you mentioned in terms of no app is secured. You see, my side of, or my perspective on it is that a lot of institutions have put in, a lot of resources to develop the app.
Yes.
And of course, even countrywide, we are trying to promote financial inclusion. Yes, I get the point that you want to make in terms of there's apps not being secure, in the sense that security cannot be 100% guaranteed. However, I think that there are some institutions also within the country that are putting some best practices in place.
Yes.
Of course, there are some of them that, of course, you realize that their security posture is extremely low, or their maturity in terms of security is extremely low. But there are some institutions that have actually complied with some of the frameworks that have been we all know, the ISO, the PCI DSS, and all that. And even Bank of Ghana has actually issued that their directive in terms of some of these things. There is the fintech office that is within the Bank of Ghana. So I think that there are some institutions that are doing their best.
Yeah, they are doing their best.
They are doing their best. They are doing their best. However, there's more to be done.
Yeah.
So if you are a listener listening to us now, yes, we are just sharing the best practices, because even your organization can have the most robust app, but if you don't do what you ought to do as a listener or watching us now, of course they can be secured, but your vulnerability would make fraud happen on their platform. So I think this is just the bit of perspective I want to put you, so that you don't take Gideon out of context.
I get you.
I get where he's trying to come from.
I understand.
It cannot be 100%.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, for my role as a quality assurance engineer, one of the things that I do as an engineer is to check and test applications before they come out. That's why I was saying, if we just put it out there that applications are not 100% secure, then it will be like, I mean, what is my role now? So yes, we do get it that there are times that there may be some vulnerabilities, and there is a need for us to also do the due diligence when it comes to us as users. And we'll be getting into more details from this, because if you don't do the due diligence as a user, then by all means you can find yourself as a victim to what we are talking about. Last week there was one thing that also came up. Somebody spoke about insider threats, and for me, it is neither here or there. When I say that, it's because there are perceptions that people have, that maybe people inside organizations are probably giving out the details of the customers, and then there's that possibility where they can call you. But then again, one conversation that I even had with some friends of mine, we have been putting our information out there, free information on our social media handles. So how can we just put ourselves in a place when we say that insider threats, is that really the case, or it is still up to us, the individuals, and what we do when it comes to the use of these applications?
Okay, so let me take it then. My colleague will just add up. I think last week we started a conversation, and of course those who are listening that were not on last week's show, let me just give them the benefit of the doubt by going and classifying the insider threats categories, right? So there is the malicious insider. That means this insider or this employee of the organization has bad intent, and he will chance upon any opportunity and commit a crime or fraud. Then there is the non-compliant and negligent insider. And you recall last week we did mention that, in fact, most of the breaches that had been investigated, you realize that most of the insider-related incidents were from non-compliant people and negligent staff within the organization. So, of course, if you are listening, I know you sometimes when you hear, oh, there's an insider involved, you think that the insider is just the the malicious guy. But of course, criminals will also try to prey on the vulnerable ones within the institutions. So that is another category, and there's also another category which is the exploited insider.
Yes.
So for them, of course, how do you call it? They are yes or massa kind of people. So once you are that type of person in the office, as another staff can use you for fraud, so that they will be exonerated, and when something comes up, you will be held liable. So these are some of the categories, and all of them, there are ways that we can deal with them. And I think primarily it is the background checks that is the first point of call. If you are employing somebody, I'm sure your listeners, they are managers and HR related people who are on call, so they should be able to do proper background checks on their staff. And also one of the key things is to be able to do some kind of mystery shopping or snap checks on this staff, so that even if there is a negligent person in your institution, the snap check or the assessment that you do on this person would give that person up early, so that will be dealt with before even a fraudster comes to use that person for fraud. So I think with this and other measures like monitoring and the rest, you'll be able to mitigate some of the insider threat issues that we face over time.
Okay. I get you on that. So there is a need for us to, even the people who are working there, to have them well informed. And it was one of the things that one of the callers mentioned, like, especially we may have people come on board, they are doing their national service, they may not necessarily go through the necessary training. They are working with the departments where confidential information is usually shared, and if they are not careful, that thing can just leak out. So there's a need for us to even train them. Do you have anything else?
So there is also this area we normally don't focus on, that is the third party risk, which is also can be categorized as part of the insider threat. So what do I mean by third party risk? So third party, for instance, an institution partnering with another institution to come up with an app, or trying to integrate by means of API, or to be able to render an extended service through their platform. If this third party is not properly vetted, or the risk assessment and their vulnerability status, and kind of if all these things are not being checked properly, these people directly or indirectly can pose as insider threat, or can cause insider threat to the main or the primary institution. So if it's a bank who partners with another party to come up with an app, or to allow customers to be able to transact on their platform, and this due diligence are not being done, at the end of the day, the third party can pose threats to this banking firm. So this is also an area we normally forget about, but it's a key area we need to focus on. And they also share data, don't forget, amongst the two entities.
There's always data being shared, and that's why there's a need for sometimes they sign in the non-disclosure forms, because there's that possibility where your information can get out there. If you're just joining us, it's Geek Squad with your girl Adobia Pep Biritwum. Last week we started a topic on managing banking fraud in digital payments, and today we are getting into more details. If you're just joining us, we have looked at certain ways in which sometimes the organizations that you're probably banking with, it's possible that your information can get out there and someone may try to defraud you, and that's what we've been talking about so far. And one of the things that I just want to touch on before we open the phone lines is that there's a need for us to keep our information secure. We spoke about ATM cards last week and the numbers on it, and how if it gets into the hands of someone, they can go ahead and be withdrawing money from your account. We mentioned the CVV number at the back with that information, and the main number in front of the card where your name is and the expiry date number is. I mean, once that information is out there, you'll be there and all you see is alert, your money debited. That's what will be happening. So with this, we have mentioned the possible ways that some of this information probably can be leaked from the inside organization, and that's what we spoke about earlier. But we would like to hear from you. Have you had any challenge? One person called and mentioned that they've not even used the app at all, but then there was money being debited from his account. We would like to hear from you. The phone lines are open. Call us on 0302 216 541. 0302 216 541. We'd like to hear from you. You can also send us your WhatsApp message on the line 055 1111 997. 055 1111 997. Gideon Omari, I know you're listening to me from UK. Please send us your WhatsApp message. I know you had a question, and this will be a very good time to send that message through to us. Yes. Again, this show, Geek Squad, is brought to you by MTN. MTN, everywhere you go. We are looking at managing banking fraud in digital payments, and we just want to ask some details. So, when it comes to the use of ATM cards, we've mentioned some time back, even when we spoke about securing our mobile money, that there's a need for us to change our pins often. Is this something that is very feasible for us to do as people? I'm trying to remember the last time I changed my ATM pin anyway. So we putting it out there. Is it something that is feasible for people to? I mean, what are some of the things that can be done when it comes to that?
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think once it's a pin and it's a secret code, it means it's supposed to be known by you, the user.
Yeah.
And nobody else. So there are instances where you feel or you suspect someone has maybe chance on the pin. So this is a very crucial time you need to change it.
Okay.
So I'm giving you possible scenarios.
Where someone can chance on the
yes,
pin.
or when you know that someone has actually chance on it, you get it.
Okay.
And there are instances where people, based on what they are doing, they are so busy, which is not a good practice, but then they give their cards to people to go out there to transact for them. They give the pin to them, they go to the nearby ATM to go and withdraw for them. These are trustworthy people or trusted people they kind of live with or they work with.
Okay. So when it just before that, so when you put your card somewhere where people can chance on it, you may not be safe. We'll be getting into more details on that. We have a caller on the line. Kakra. Hi Kakra, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you and your team.
Hi.
For such a good program this evening.
Thank you. Kakra, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Legon.
All right, let's hear from you.
I want to make a contribution, not
Okay.
necessarily an experience. I like the way Gideon made the first submission, right, about secure systems, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and I like Gideon going straight to the point and admitting that there is no secure system. I know the other guy. Sorry, I don't have the name.
Eric.
The name. Eric, I don't know which institution you consult for, but you see, these are the hard truths we find ourselves in telling these our managers and the business owners. There is no secure system, and Gideon went straight to the point. But Eric came trying to garnish it and all that. Forget about the PCI, whatever, the iOS, ISOs. These are codes they'll go through and tell you that, oh, your codes are fine. But the fact that they've not identified a vulnerability in your system doesn't mean that you have a secure system. There is no secured system. And I agree with Gideon 100%. There is no secured system. The vulnerability is yet to be found. Why are they then sending updates? Because they themselves do pen tests and they know that, yes, there is a loophole and you have to send updates. And mind you, not all updates that set security back. So please, Gideon, I 100%. You know, the business people, they don't want to hear this. The IT guys don't want to even talk about how unsecured a system is. As for the regulatory, BOG and Eric all talking about that, those are books. So
Thank
please,
you very
I
much,
want to
Kaka.
side with Gideon. That
You
there's
side
no
with
secure
Gideon.
system.
Thank you very much. There is no secure system.
This is
Eric,
debatable.
it's very debatable.
So you know, one key thing I mentioned in my submission,
Yeah.
that I get the point that Gideon is trying to.
That is
There's
true.
never
Yeah.
a secured system. Even the most secure system that we would think that exists now, the next minute or tomorrow,
Yes.
there could be a vulnerability or
Vulnerability.
somebody cannot.
Yeah.
hack it. However, you know, there are some minimum thresholds,
Yeah.
right? And I used to always say that nobody can promise you reducing fraud to 0%.
Never.
Right? You only mitigate it. So the only point I was trying to make out is that we
Some
just
of
have
these
to
risks.
have some,
way
you
of
know, we should be able to mitigate the risk to a larger extent, right? So that people would, you know, use the product.
Got you. Then we have to mitigate the risk. They come with risk, but we have to mitigate them. We have another caller. Nana Kwesi, hi, good evening.
Good evening, madam.
This is Adobia.
Adobia, good evening.
Good evening.
And good evening to your panelists. Yeah. I want to find out, you elaborated on the point of ATM card where the person who picks it up can, you know, make withdrawals by mere looking at the numbers. Can you elaborate on that point?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
When it comes to the use of our ATM cards, the thing is that they are debit cards in Ghana. And when we say debit cards and you have this linked to your account, what it means is that with the number on the ATM card, that's about the 12 or 14,
15,
yeah,
16,
the digits there. That number, the expiry date, your name, and then the back of the ATM card where we have the CVV number. Once someone has this information, all they have to do is to go online. Any shopping site online, they enter these details. I tell you, they will be able to withdraw money from your account.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways we'll be getting into how we can keep ourselves secure, but the cards, I think Gideon was touching on that. You don't just give them to anyone. You don't just place them anywhere, because once someone gets a hold of it, you may find yourself wanting. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, you want to ask something, Eric?
Yeah. So I think that is on the side of the card not present fraud.
Yeah.
But let me just seize the opportunity to add this, which is the card scheming, right? Yes, of course, we are all aware that we sometimes use our cards online. But when you go to the ATM to transact with the ATM, or like withdraw money, sometimes people criminals put schemers on the ATMs. So it's very important that as users of the ATM, when you go to the ATM, you see something, you know, different other than what you've been seeing. In fact, alert the bank if the bank is closer to you. But if it's an off-site ATM, maybe probably don't even do the transaction on that ATM. And always remember to cover your PIN when inputting your PIN in the use of ATM machines.
Cover your PIN. Yeah, some of the ATM machines even have
the PIN shell.
Exactly.
And that is basically to avoid the scheming Eric touched on.
Yeah.
So basically, it has been there since the introduction of ATM, the scheming. There is another version of it called the shaming. This is quite technical, but it's also, we have the shimmers just like the skimmers. They are also a little bit tinier than the normal the skimmers. So this is how they, like Eric has already said, that they plug this at the ATM side, and they normally have a hidden camera, not the normal ATM cameras that the bank use to monitor you, but then there are hidden cameras there which also takes the keystrokes as you enter your key on the keypad whilst you are doing a transaction on the ATM machine. So I think that was basically what we were saying. So if there's no call, we can continue from that
just
point.
before that.
Okay.
I just want to read this question that we have. Said, hi Pep, I have 2 banking apps from 2 different banks on my phone. One of them will not let me log in when I am on any Wi-Fi unless I switch to mobile data. Can't all banks practice this? Ernest from Abeka is asking this question. And then just before we get into that, he's saying, and when there is a new update, you can't continue using the app until you have updated it. So I think some are relatively secure. That's what Ernest is saying. So for him, he has to be on his mobile data before, which means if you're on Wi-Fi and probably free Wi-Fi, someone
I think we touched on that last week, where we said that avoid using the public Wi-Fi. Whenever you use the public Wi-Fi, don't transact. So the Wi-Fi at the airport, at the restaurant, the hotels, when you go there, don't use your banking apps. So if the bank detects that, like if he said in his case, the bank doesn't allow him to use the app when it's on the Wi-Fi. It's a good practice, but you know the question is, to what extent can this app determine how secure that Wi-Fi network is?
Because I use Wi-Fi
at home,
I can't use the app when I'm
and that is the only means of connectivity in the house. Assuming you are using a tablet or a device that does not support the SIM card.
Yes.
How do you then go about it? So I think it's to some extent it has an advantage, but there's its own disadvantage as well.
Exactly.
But one thing it touched on, which is very good practice, is when they release latest update,
Unless you
which is to
update.
fix a bug, unless you update before you be able to use it, which is a brilliant what do you call it, solution
Way.
there, because if they know that the current one is vulnerable, then they prevent you from using it, which is perfect.
Yes,
Yeah, so
yes.
it's a good practice.
That's true. That's true. But where all banks would let you only use your mobile data, I don't think that is something
And then
that. All right. There's another. Okay, question. This is Bliss from Dakuman. He's asking, what are the ideal features of a secure bank app? What are the ideal features of a secure bank app?
Okay, all right.
I think.
So I'll touch on some and then Eric will continue.
Okay.
Good. So the banking app must first have means of authentication. I think last week or so somebody did mention through the WhatsApp also that his bank app, you just log in. There's no, once you have the phone number, you just log in and there's no means of authentication, which is very bad. So there should be means of authentication.
Yeah.
Authentication here means you need to have a unique username and a password that identifies only you.
But are there any bank apps that you can just go ahead and, because by all means there will be some kind of authentication?
Yeah, so like the person said, you just use the phone number. To me, using phone number to log into an app is not any it's no form of authentication. It's not strong enough. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
It's very weak authentication, because if I have your phone number and it doesn't even send OTP to your phone number, you just use the phone number to log in. There's a bad practice.
I'm sure maybe
You get
OTP
it.
will be
Good.
sent. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the first thing. There should be an authentication, and not just the username and password. There should be the multi-factor authentication. So another layer of security where an OTP would be sent to your phone or through your email, or even it will ask you to use your fingerprint, which is also brilliant. You can use your fingerprint to authenticate the app. It means that when a person gets your phone, he needs your thumbprint or fingerprint before you'll be able to get into it. These are some of it. And also, there should be frequent updates. If you have your bank app and for the whole year or like 2 years, there's no update, knowing how vulnerable our environment is and the cybersecurity ecosystem is quite just like Eric said, the next minute an application can become vulnerable due to identify vulnerability by the back actors. So that is how it is. So it must constantly be updated. I think Eric will want to
just before that, it must constantly be updated, and I would like you to share more thoughts on it. But just before that, if you're joining us, you are listening to the Geek Squad with your girl Adobia Pep Biritwum. Today we are looking at managing banking fraud in digital payments. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Eric, you shed more light on this. Just joining us is Geek Squad with Adobia Pep Biritwum. Today we are looking at managing banking fraud in digital payments. Now, before we continue our conversation, what we want to share with you from MTN. Ready to treat your callers to good tunes while you win incredible rewards? Earn points by purchasing, renewing, copying, or gifting your favorite caller tunes, and you can win amazing prizes based on your total accumulated points. Yep. Build as many points as possible and you can win tons of data to stay connected to things you love, or you can win an amazing 10,000 Ghana cedis cash prize to splash on your fave things. It's the perfect way to entertain your callers with music and get rewarded at the same time. Start collecting your caller tunes points today. Visit collartunes.mtn.com.gh. Caller Tunes is CALLERTUNEZ. Or you can just dial *1355# to get started on the MTN Caller Tunes service. This promo lasts till 7th November 2023. Terms and conditions apply. We're looking at managing the banking fraud when it comes to digital payments, and Eric, you had some point to share on that.
Yes. So I think those who are not following, or those who forgot the question, basically Gideon was touching on some of the ideal security features that you should expect from a banking app.
Yes.
Right. So he mention a few of them. I just want to mention another one, right? So before I mention that other one, he did mention multi-factor authentications and the rest. Now, there are levels of identification, right? And there's a concept that is who a person is, or what a person is, what a person knows, or what a person has, right? So what a person has basically is a physical device. So for example, if you want to authenticate me for any login or entering this office, I can have a card, I can have a token with me, physical, and then when I show it to the door, it opens, right? So that's a way of logging in. Then what a person knows generally is more of your pins, your passwords, right? Things that you can memorize. Then the third level is what a person is, which is the biometrics, right? So basically, if for example, if you are a bank listening, or you are security manager listening, ensure that you marry these levels of authentication. Oftentimes, like the mobile app like this, they marry what a person knows and what a person is. Right? Yeah. So you could put in your PIN, then after that you add your biometrics to it. That also enhances the authentication mechanism. So the last bit that I wanted to add is that for some apps, and I know some banks in Ghana have this, where when you download the app is tied to your phone number and tied to your phone itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
That's so true.
It's tied to your phone itself.
When I lost my phone, I had to go through a tough time trying to put it on another phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is a mechanism to also, ensure that these apps are not misused, or they are not fraud doesn't really occur on customers' accounts by the use of the apps.
Yeah.
So I just sort of adding this, so at least it complements what my brother mentioned earlier.
And I think the last part you touched on is really good, because normally it prevents you from using this app on multiple devices.
Yes.
So
exactly.
it makes it difficult for someone else to share
also have
exactly. So
your credentials and be using those details. We have a message, and okay, the person doesn't mention their name, but he's saying, for another layer of security, certain payment gateways now require the one-time passwords after adding card details before payment goes through when shopping online.
Perfect.
Great work, Geeks. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, because with the one-time password, at least it's sent to your phone. If that online transaction is not close to the phone that is being used, then you are just blocked there. You can't continue and do that. That's good. Okay. There's also another message. Says, hi, this is Steve Kweku Amwatim from Tema Community 5, listening live. Charlie, I always type my Momo PIN in place of the transaction description. I at no, you don't do that. Please, you don't do that. When it comes to transaction description, it is usually the reference. So for example, if you're sending school fees, the description would be example school fees. Your PIN, you don't put it there, because I'm someone who is trying to defraud you. When I see the number, I will just try it and see. So please don't, at any point in time, please, if you're listening to me, at any point in time when you're sending any form of money to anyone using any of these digital platforms, try as much as possible not to expose your PIN. Don't send it as a description. Don't send it as any message anywhere. In fact, this is one of the things that we have to even look at, how we keep our pins.
This is just like locking your door and leaving the key
out
just under the doormat, as we used to do in those days.
Yes. In fact,
so
the door
it's better you don't lock
the
door because anybody who sees the key just has access to them.
Yes. So let's just touch on this solution. How do we keep our pins? You mentioned sometimes people can put their card somewhere. I remember a story. The card for one friend of mine, he wasn't feeling well. He asked someone to go withdraw money, and unfortunately for him, he wrote the number behind the card. The person went to withdraw the money, brought it, but later on, another person got hold of the card. He just saw alert, 200 Ghana, withdraw, 200 Ghana, withdraw. Before
he was even fortunate to subscribe to the alert to see it.
Exactly. By the time he got to the bank, unfortunately, his money was gone. They couldn't find the person. So how safe can we keep our pins?
Good.
Do we have to just memorize it? Can we keep them online?
Yeah.
I know it's not the best, but what do we do?
All right. So to me, the best as a professional will tell you to keep it in your head.
Yes.
That is the best way, And aside even the keeping it itself, normally people don't struggle. I don't know, but I think people don't struggle keeping the pin, but rather the frequency of changing it or how to come up with the pin is the issue.
True.
So last week we did mention that people even use their year of birth.
Yeah.
You get it. And when it comes to even passwords, it's even worse off because people use simple things that they are known with, they can be identified with. For instance, their nicknames, their the date of birth, their pet name, and some jargons they are used to. These are all bad practices because if I'm close to you or I really want to, defraud you, I just have to spend some few time with you, monitoring all these things, and then I can pick it. And I also mentioned that don't use the same pin to unlock your phone as your ATM pin.
Yeah.
The same pin like you used to unlock the 4 digits or whatever digit used to unlock your phone.
Or don't use one pin for
across board.
Multiple
I'm
things.
just being specific because I know people do that a lot. The same 4 digits they use to unlock their phone is the same 4 digits they use as their ATM code. Where it requires 6, he has zeros ahead of it or zeros after.
At the back.
You see, so it's a bad practice. So, but in short, we just have to. We've always been saying this on the show. The due diligence is the key thing. The human factor.
Yeah.
When it comes to security, the human element is the weakest link in the whole chain.
True.
So, if we said it, if the bank app is even secured enough to protect you, you can still be vulnerable if you yourself you are not very vigilant.
That's
and
true.
you do certain things without your due diligence. So it's difficult to say it, but these are how people are doing it.
The best way is to keep it in your head. Try as much as possible not to have one pin running across board. We are still talking about managing banking fraud when it comes to digital payments. This is Geek Squad with Adobia Pep Biritwum. We want to hear from you. You can call us on 0302 216 541. We have gotten a message. I'm just going to go ahead and read. I said, "Hi Pep. Another way to mitigate fraud is to ensure you receive timely notifications." I think we have touched on this on your phone through your bank during your banking transactions. In this way, if there's a fraudulent transaction, you'll be able to get through to your bank before the recipient is debited. This is AQ from Accra. Yes. Once you have the alert system in place, at least you get your SMS, email notification, whatever way you are notified. Once you have that in place, at least you see what is happening. Like I said, this person I spoke about, they saw the alerts coming through and they just hurried off to the bank. And fortunately for him, they were able to stop it, but then the person could not be found. This is Ghana.
Yeah. And also, maybe before Eric comes in, we did mention last week that, just to maybe repeat ourselves, that normally opt for the virtual card. So we have the digital virtual cards where you can generate the same card, physical debit card, but in a virtual way. Some banks provide that service. Then we also have another type of this virtual cards where it's one-time use, for one-time usage. So anytime you want to purchase something, you're able to generate this card, use it for that transaction. Afterwards, it dies off.
Nobody gets
that is it. So wherever your bank, if your bank provides such services, then that is the best thing to opt in for or go in for. Also, another practice is to limit the cap on your transactions. So assuming somebody chances on the ATM card and you have a limit of maybe 50 cedis transaction on it, then it means that the person cannot withdraw beyond that figure.
Okay, so there's a need for us to limit the transactions, possibly use virtual cards and then prepaid cards. We have another caller. Hello, good evening, Ken.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Ken.
Yeah, so
please, why are you calling?
I've been listening to the program, and I think it's a very good exercise. A lot of people are quite vulnerable when it comes to banking fraud. People tend to belittle the capabilities of the persons that are close to them. So like the panelists rightly said, things that are very identifiable to you, date of birth, anniversary, etc., should not be used. But one other thing people do sometimes is to use the last 4 digits
of their phone
or first 4 digits of their phone number, which people are easily able to guess.
Yeah.
And I have had a couple of frauds that we've investigated. And by the time we finish speaking to the person, you realize that these are the little loopholes that they left. They left themselves open. And at the end of the day, they come back attacking and wanting a refund of a sort. So it's important that we all be on guard. First 4 digits, last 4 digits, anything that can easily be guessed by a fraudster, I think we need to guard against it. In fact, people would think that you can lock your phone. Now, if it is about mobile money, I can just remove your SIM card and put it in another phone.
That's so true.
So that unlock thing is broken. That security feature is broken. It's now left with the PIN, which if it's something that is very much common to guess, easy to guess, I mean, you are left open. So it's important to take note of.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much, Ken. There was something that came through last week. What Ken has touched on is very good. The numbers that we use, so that we don't fall prey to them. There was something about contactless card. I would like us to touch on it. But before that, we just want to take the tech quick fixes. Welcome back to Geek Squad with Adobia Pep Biritwum. All too soon, our time is almost coming up to an end. Oh, how I wish, but we would have to end it today. I believe that a lot of information has gone out there. As I said, I want us to touch on the contactless card. It came through last week. How secure are they?
Okay, so basically, those who are not aware of how the contactless card operates, it's just like the tap and pay kind of phenomenon. So you have the ATM card, like we all call it, but it has that NFC technology in it. So you go to a shop, you buy, let's say, a product, you just tap on a device, then automatically the payment is made.
You don't enter your PIN.
You don't enter your PIN. You just tap. That's why it's called a tap and pay and contactless. You don't touch anything. And I think that is something that is coming up within the country. I know some banks that have actually deployed some of these contactless cards, but because of the risks around it, one of the banks I know, the amount you can spend
it's limited,
very small. So I think we are now really exploring it within the country, and once we get hold of it properly, maybe the limits can go up a bit, because there are frauds around it. There's a concept, or there's something called the e-pickpocketing. So the pickpocketing, we all know that happens around. Yes, there's that electronic kind of pickpocketing. So I think that is it. That's it on the contactless.
The contactless, but it's secure anyway.
Yeah.
And it has to be within a certain proximity before it can also happen. So yes, there's a way that that can also be used in a secure manner. Like I said, all too soon our time is coming up to an end, but we just want to wrap up. So within a minute, Gideon, we have looked at managing banking fraud in digital payments. What would you like to tell us?
Okay, so I think to my listeners and our viewers, this is very insightful education we are giving out here, but we can't say it all here just as we know the time will not permit us. So the best thing to do is be very proactive when it comes to some of these things. Start asking questions and start going online to read about them. It's not always about people telling you how these things are, but rather take the proactive step by learning about them. And I believe once you become more informed, you become cyber aware, it makes it easy for you to understand some of these concepts, and you don't easily just fall victim to them. So that is for our
Let's
viewers.
become cyber aware, cyber security awareness.
We are in the cyber aware security awareness month.
So,
Eric, your final words.
So just to take it from the consumer side, aside that, we have to look at the regulatory angle, right? So the regulators must also make sure they implement some of the guidelines that they and sanction people that comply with it, right? Then from the law enforcement angle also, when there are issues of banking fraud, it should be handled swiftly, so that perpetrators can be identified. And we all know that this month is a National Cyber Security Awareness Month. So every organization should find a place or time within the month to train their staff on cybersecurity.
That's so important. We are in the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and this is a global thing. We should all be aware of what is happening around us. That is why Geek Squad today brought you the details that we shared with you when it comes to managing banking fraud in digital payments. It's been an interesting time with my guests. Thank you so much, Gideon and Eric. I believe that you have learned a lot. Like we said, it doesn't end here. Read more about it online. I know, Mr. K, you listened to me today from US. Thank you so much for making the time. And thanks a million to my producers, Edem Naite, my executive producer, Prince Safo, my producer. Today I couldn't have a vehicle on, but then I have Kofi Hayford, my technical producer, Oliver and the team. Thank you all so much, and thank you for making time to join us. Same time next week, God willing, we would be back. Please, it's Pink October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month also. My ladies, let us all just be aware and stay safe. Get yourself screened. It is time for news. Just stay tuned.